All right, we're on the air. It's 8:31. Marty and KC talking to you today, Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for joining us. We are talking about crimes and consequences and essentially so you think you want to be a criminal defense attorney. And this is a little deeper dive, Marty pointed out, than something we have touched on before, but it was on my mind and he's kind enough to indulge me because speaking to your clients, your criminal defendants, whether that be out on the street because they've been able to post bail, and maybe we need to talk a little bit about bail and the complexities of that and how that can deprive people who are impoverished of their liberty. But these are the things that, you need to be aware of as you're going into this world, not just the why KC Ashmore or Marty Elbert wanted to do it, but the why, the what, and the how about the things you're going to face when you're talking to citizens about crime and consequences.
Right. And if I was a new attorney and I had this case and I was like, oh, they're offering this plea, but my client's not sure. And I think we can win at trial, but if we don't, then there's not a chance, or there's no way we're winning at trial. Should we take this plea? So and I know it's going to depend on what the crime was. First of all, it's going to depend on the defendant. It's going to depend on sometimes even the judge.
Yes.
So we were just talking about one before we came on. Tell us about that. Tell everybody what the situation is and what you decided was the best route for your client. And again, it's always going to be what's best for the client.
Yeah, that's
sometimes your client is their own worst enemy and they refuse to take our advice. But what's your best for the client?
That's absolutely all true. Clients can self-destruct. They can get extremely valuable, pay any amount of money for legal advice, whether they're appointed or they're privately hired, and sometimes they just won't help themselves. They will not follow that good advice, and they're entitled to do that, or they do things that are self-destructive. You're in the middle of a bad case and you pick up a new offense. There's nothing that makes a bad case worse than a new offense when you're out on bond, right? And
new offense. Not offense as we're playing offense, but a new offense as they go out and do something stupid again.
Yeah, they pick up a new charge.
Okay.
Yeah, as they say, right?
Your Texas accent threw me off with the offense and okay.
No. Let's define that. I like. Let's break it down. Right. We're talking about picking up a new charge or catching a new charge. Right. You've been charged with possession of marijuana under 2 ounces and driving under the influence, and then you go out and you get a new charge for driving under the influence. Right. I mean, now your DWI 1 has a DWI 2 right behind it. It's a unwise position to be in, especially you're in multiple counties, because that you're looking at jail time in county 1, and then you're going to go over to county 2 and do more jail time.
Right.
And you are literally in the system. This is the quicksand that a lot of young men and women find themselves in because they're making bad decisions. They're addicted to drugs and alcohol. They're committing crimes to fund that addiction, and there are consequences for that.
Right. And then they can start stacking them instead of running concurrently, which means back to back instead of at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that one case that you were just talking about. So it was the defendant charged with, was it child neglect, child abuse?
Well, that's not there yet. It's likely that might even be completely avoided, but there's a prior offense that we're trying to resolve, and in the middle of that, a new offense, a new charge that has to do with child neglect, and we're talking about the most drastic, serious kind, that you can think of, and it's extremely troubling to have these conversations. When you're a young lawyer, you're thinking you're going to go out there and you're going to defend the Constitution, and you are, right, on that, driving without a valid license. You're going to keep that guy from doing jail time on what's really a silly ticket. Failure to have responsibility, right? Your insurance violations, right? Which they can snowball and get you into a financial mess. These are things that you got to help people who don't have a lot of money, and you feel happy. You get a little paycheck to the heart doing that. But as you grow through your legal career, certainly I have, these conversations get a lot heavier, right? Because the cases get a lot harder. The harder cases tend to find you because you're the problem solver, right? So Marty's been doing this for, 2 decades, right? So there's going to be people who know him, who have heard of him, who refer to him, whether they be prior clients or their family members. They know Marty's a fighter and a very reasonable person, but more importantly, he can explain to his client the advantages and disadvantages for making decisions about how to limit. And the big limitation in this situation is how to limit the amount of time you're going to be inside 23 hours a day in a cinder block, right?
Right. And by when you say Marty, you mean an experienced attorney. You should be saying
right. I'm using you as the example.
I used to do criminal law 9 years ago when I was in Iowa. I don't anymore. I gave that up. I still love the time I did it, though. It's one of the most rewarding and challenging areas of practice that I found. It's riding that fine line, like you said. Should we take this plea? Should we take it to trial? Should we throw out the jury and just go to a bench trial because we know we have them on the law? We don't need to sway a jury. We just know that they have not hit this part of the law that they have to prove. So,
yeah. And there's a lot of advantages to that when you do know you have the law on your side. But you're right. It's a lot of critical thinking and a lot of negotiating, right? Your negotiation skills are really put to the test, not only with your ability to work out what might be, because I think the easiest way for folks to understand it is the state usually says your level of responsibility is here. And as the defense attorney, you're trying to say, well, that may be well and good, but we really feel like our level of responsibility is closer to here. Why don't we work something out, right? Where there's the peace and dignity of the state is protected, public safety concerns are addressed, and the consequences for the conduct are something that you can persuade your client to agree on because it either protects them from some other conduct that's in the pipeline, which is very often the case. And that's what I was dealing with in the last 48 hours, right? There's conduct that is my particular problem, but there's an unindicted, uncharged crime or potential crime in the, in dressing room B, right? To stage left, let's bring out this unindicted new charge, right? And that's what you need to be able to articulate in a humane and kind way to someone who is looking down the road at many years. It's not solitary confinement, but it's still not freedom. It's absolutely the absence of liberty. You are, dormitory style housing, cinder block, no air conditioning. Your only luxury is cable TV. If you can afford a cable television in your cell, you may have one, but you have to be able to buy it. You have to have the financial wherewithal to buy that. Otherwise, it's the TV in the day room. That's the only TV. And you're not in charge of what's on. You're told when to wake up, when to go to work, when to shower, what side of the stripe to walk on. It's a very, very Spartan, one mattress, one sheet to cover yourself, one pillow, one blanket, always the same orange pajamas, right? Kung fu slippers. And when you're thinking, Yeah, all day, every day, multiply that 365 times 8 or 10 or 20. And these are difficult conversations to have because at a certain point, you're talking about, look, we're talking about how fast are you going to be back, right?
Mhm.
We have in dressing room B this uncharged new criminal enterprise episode, whatever you want to describe it as. You're going to catch that charge if we don't make this deal work. Let's limit that. And then the biggest problem with that, the biggest challenge, and again, this is where I would recommend, and Marty, maybe you can jump in on this, persuasive speaking and working on your ability to be a persuasive speaker, to be a mediator, to have trained in how to negotiate.
Absolutely.
And you and I are both on a training platform that is all about becoming a better negotiator and persuasive speaker. I don't know what my skill level was before we both met through Cardone University, but I can promise you it's 1,000% better. It's 10x better than it was a year ago.
Wow, that's great.
And I don't know if that's how you feel about your ability to be a persuasive speaker, but it wouldn't surprise me either, since I know you drill every day. And in fact, this weekly broadcast came out of that, one of those drills, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And again, back to the thing at issue, when you're looking at these crimes, these consequences, and then the long-term effects of them, the unindicted offense, if it makes it into the evidence, can actually prevent somebody from getting liberty later, right? And with a thing called parole, when they're in the system, right? They go to the big house, the hooskow, the clink, whatever you want to call it.
Talk about the specifics. I know you can't say who it is and what it
Right.
is. Just the specifics, so people can understand the weight of really the weight of the decision on your shoulders to represent that client, the weight on the shoulders of the client to decide if they should take a plea or if they should see if that charge does actually come out of closet B or whatever you were calling it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of weighing everything that's coming at them. And then it's your job, our job as the attorney to have them weigh it with all the information that we have possible. This is what could happen. This is what will happen. This is what a jury would find. This is what a prosecutor would find. This is what a parole board would find. Just throw out some specific details of what your client is, or what the client. I don't even think it was yours. It was, but anyway.
Yeah. So in this scenario, we're talking about somebody with a serious drug charge, right? A second-degree felony with a punishment range of up to 20 years, a minimum sentence of 2, and some culpability of conduct. So a second-degree felony, right? That's pretty serious, right? That's a lot of drugs. It is a drug charge, though, right? So it's basically a drug selling charge.
Right. There's a lot of evidence pointing against the client.
Right. It's just absolutely good for the charge, right? You're
Right.
good for the offer. You need to take some sort of offer, because if you were to take it to trial, there's about a 1,000% chance of conviction, because many things, right? Accepted responsibility at the stop. The stop is absolutely perfect, right?
Mhm.
Conducted by a Texas state trooper. They never make mistakes. And even if they do, the jury never cares, right? Once they see that shiny badge and that beautiful brown uniform with the big old hat, they're like, yes, sir. What did you say? Oh, the taillight was definitely out. In fact, we could see it out from the mind's eye.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, right? So the facts are very stacked heavily against your client. Your client is looking at, I must take this deal or some sort of deal to limit my criminal exposure and the amount of time in that unhappy cinder block place that we described. And then behind that, off on, in the dressing room, is this unindicted new charge. And this new charge has to do with the reckless endangerment of a child, right? It's something that a jury will absolutely hate. And the risk is the judge might hate it even more, right? So if the judge
Guess
hears
who
about
else hates it? The people in jail.
and the
People in prison.
people, the attorney who has to deal with this person, right? You know,
No, and the people, the co-cellmates.
oh yeah,
they do not like child abusers.
They really don't. It is really, really, really hard on crimes against the elderly and crimes against children. That they have the roughest time in prison.
Right.
And all that being said, your job is to protect your client from this unindicted charge off on stage B, waiting to come out of the dressing room. Because if that charge works its way into any kind of punishment evaluation by the court or a jury, that means that that unindicted charge is going to be reviewed every time that person becomes eligible for parole. Now, in Texas and in many states, parole eligibility on a nonviolent offense is about half time. So about half time through your sentence. Let's say your sentence is 10 years. At year 4.5, you can make your first application for the board to review you.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's this evidence of the reckless conduct towards a elderly or a little person, a little child, if that evidence is in there, the likelihood is that's what's called an aggravating factor. And the likelihood is the review board will deny an initial application because, yes, your drug charge may have been nonviolent, but look at this reckless conduct, which is considered violence, right? It's the intentional disregard of known risks, right? Your conduct was so reckless and so dangerous to others, to public safety, to human life, to the life of a child or an elderly person that, you know what, Mr. We think you need to be here for 75% of your time. So you're going to get your next application at year 7.5, right? And so you can't even put in another review request at year 6, at year 7. And then by the time that comes around, you're at year 8, and they look at that again with a fresh set of eyes. And they go, you are really an awful, it might be somebody new who's even more angry about what you did.
Yep.
Right. And that's very likely to happen.
And that knowledge comes with experience.
Yes.
So you would say to a young attorney that wants to get involved in criminal law to make sure they have a mentor, make sure they have somebody that they can run cases by, even if it's not a co-counsel, just some type of person to reach out to and say, hey, I've got this situation. What should I do? How can I help my client?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you something, you can absolutely reach out to me at any time. If you're, I was fortunate to have some great mentors, but, we could always use more. Informal mentoring is a great, great tool. Get yourself some professional groups, right? Get on some Facebook groups, become a member of the Defense Lawyers Association in whatever state you may be in, build a network through that group. Partner with a young, smart appellate attorney. I tell you, there's a guy named Jason Niehaus. We have been friends for, I can't even remember how long now, a while. But I remember when I was a kid lawyer, but he was even more of a kid lawyer than me. But we met very early in our careers and have been fast friends ever since. He practices in Denton County on the other end of the Metroplex. I'm in Rockwall. He may take the bench one day. We are going to miss him, but his expertise as an appellate lawyer and guiding you on what issues you must consider when you're walking into these conversations, right? You need to consider bing, bang, and boom. And these are friends and mentors. Here's a younger lawyer mentoring me, the more senior attorney, on what the appellate court, so don't think you can't learn something just because they're, a few chapters behind you. They may actually have some more specialized knowledge that you can, so get on that corona of brightness. Those super smart people like Marty Elberg talking about estate planning and changing his entire life and entire practice to align with his core values. These are things that you need to know. And they're from building networks of people that are aspiring and aligned with what you want to do. Right. So Marty, bucket list moment. Cause this is my last, I'm not going to go on for too much longer. So we're already past our time for the hook, but I did want to say, Marty, I love the fact that you've always encouraged me to do it now when it comes to bucket list items. Kids had a 3.5 day weekend because of school in-service days. Grabbed the family, packed them up in the Ford Raptor, took them out to Big Bend, Texas, went camping with 3 boys and my wife. It was absolutely fantastic. Got to go swim in the hot springs. I don't know if you know this about the Big Bend, Marty, but it's the biggest wilderness area left in Texas. It's really the only wilderness left in Texas. It's massive. It's worth a Google. Okay.
Nice. I saw some pictures. They looked fantastic.
Yeah. There's a hot springs in the park.
Okay.
Leftover from back in the day when hot springs were a thing.
Yep.
And the building still is there. It's right on the Rio Grande. And the water temperature of the Rio Grande is about 60 degrees, 68 degrees this time of year. It's pretty shallow right now because it's not the wet season out there. But right off the river is this old hot springs building, which has been beat up by the river. Most of the building is gone, but it's still there. And you can hop in it. And it's about 140 degrees.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely fantastic.
Wow.
Absolutely fantastic experience. You got to go. You got to get out there, folks. So that's all I got. Marty, any saved rounds? Any last thoughts?
No, I think that's a perfect last thought. Live today.
Live
You
today.
might die tomorrow. Oh, I just came up with that one, by the way. Live today.
I like that hashtag. You got to write that down.
I'm always looking at death. Sorry.
It's all good.
No, I'm not sorry because that really does make people live for today.
It does.
You never know. You never know. Tomorrow's not guaranteed.
Not guaranteed.
And I don't say that lightly. I know there are a lot of people suffering, but for those of us that can get out and do something and just say, "Oh, I'll do that someday," go do it.
Go do it. Yeah.
Just
Marty,
go do it.
Some of the best advice you ever gave. Me personally. Go do it. So love it.
Perfect.
Thanks, brother. We'll see you in a week.
All right. We'll see y'all.
Bye.
Bye.